This is a very brief overview of elements of planning. It's only a few slides and I only want to do a couple of things in this session. For a start, I want to look at the goals or objectives of the planning system. So first of all, the desired outcomes for individuals, groups or entire organizations. So set the goals. What are the goals of the organization? Where does the business want to be? Where is it now? So it's getting a position of the business. Where is it now and where does it want to be? So set the outcomes. That's the first part in the planning process. Secondly, provide direction and performance evaluation criteria. If the management know where the business is now in terms of its market performance, with regards to what its competitors are doing and what the customers want, if it knows where it is, then it can set a direction, its target. So it knows its direction. Now it needs to set out performance evaluation criteria. It needs to evaluate its performance and to be able to judge whether its performance is good or bad. So it needs to aim at the target and evaluate its progress towards meeting that target, to achieving the target. So, quite simply, the business must have an objective. Now, generally speaking, this is caught up in the mission statement, and the mission statement states what the business is, what the core of the business activity is, and what it's aiming to do. Now, having set out what it's aiming to do, having got a position on itself, it's necessary to plan out the route from where it is now to where it wants to be, and to judge how effectively it meets that requirement. In other classes in this area, in other classes we will look at all sorts of issues surrounding this. We will look at it in much more detail, but for the moment this is essential stuff. This is essentially what the business is doing. Now let's look at the plans. Documents that outline how goals are to be accomplished. That's what plans are. They're documents, or they are statements about what is to be achieved. So it sets out the requirements of the business in the context of the goals which were identified earlier. Describe how resources are to be allocated and establish activity schedules. So if the company knows where it needs to be, or where it wants to be, and where it is now, it knows the path it must follow. Now the plans must document this and show how it's going to be achieved. The performance criteria will indicate whether these documents are good or not too good. The evaluation criteria will assess the documents, will assess the plans, and see if the plans are achieving what they set out to achieve. And they should also describe how resources are to be allocated. And resources should be allocated efficiently. But we have performance evaluation criteria, so we have some indication of how the resources should be allocated. And on a more detailed level, on a more operational level, the plans should also show how the resources will be allocated in practice, the sequence of the allocation, the amounts of resources required, and the whole operational plan for how to get from where the business is to where it wants to be. So I said it was a short class. Really, that's all I'm going to do on this one. But what I want to emphasize again is the company must know where it is now and where it wants to be. The business must know where it is now and where it wants to be. This is caught up in the mission statement. This is normally specified in the mission statement. These are its aspirations. But it does this with regard to feedback from the marketing section, who says that the customers would like to see the following. It does it in the context of what the competitors are doing. So it knows where it needs to be. So having got a position statement on where it is now and where it needs to be, it has direction. Now it needs to evaluate the criteria for performance on how to get there. There are many routes to where it's going. It needs to select the best route, the performance evaluation criteria. And then it goes down to the plans. The plans are documents on how the goals are to be accomplished. They describe how resources are to be allocated, and they look at the more nitty-gritty operational issues that need to be confronted and dealt with if the business is to be moved successfully from where it is now to where it needs to be or where it wants to be. That's all this class is doing. So, with that in mind, let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.